Hello and welcome to the Behind Closed Doors podcast. My name is Alicia Aberley and I'm so grateful that you have joined us in this space. Behind Closed Doors is all about the types of conversations that we only usually have with our best friend, our partner, our counselor, our coach. And sometimes it's the conversations that we don't actually have with anybody else at all. The women that are interviewed in this space are all women that are making a difference to the planet. They're women that are inspiring and empowering. The intention is that you too will feel inspired and empowered by these conversations. So grab a cup of your favorite drink, pop your feet up, and enjoy this episode of Behind Closed Doors. Today's guest is a creative wordsmith, urban philosopher, and historical storyteller who harnesses the power of forgotten philosophies and spiritual inquisition to inspire, motivate, and provoke positive change. She is the founder of the SOULFUL Group, a company which aims to spread soulfulness through its various business activities and ultimately impact 1 million lives by 2025. Hello and welcome, Shobana Patel.
Alicia, hello.
So great to have you here.
It's really, really great. We're reconnecting, aren't we, after about a month?
We are. So just for our listeners today, we have done a part interview and we had so much trouble with the internet connection. So here we are again today. And in that month, hasn't so much shifted for you?
Oh, absolutely. I think I mentioned to you by Facebook Messenger that I had to, at the 11th hour when you kind of make a change, and I was going ahead and still doing very useful and fruitful things to help people, but very close to finalizing something, I shifted focus. And today we have the SOULFUL Group, which is the company that I'm going to be focused and working on for the next few years.
Fantastic. And from my last conversation with you, the SOULFUL Group, is that still where you are a publishing house?
Absolutely. So we have zoned in our focus, listening to what people wanted, and we're a publishing house and a digital agency. Step by step, we have to begin somewhere, and we're going to actually have a base in Australia, which is something I didn't mention to you, but we'll be in the UK, Australia, and India.
Wow. Congratulations, Shobana. That is so amazing.
Yeah, so I can't wait to share all of that with, a lot of your listeners are obviously from Australia. So that's all happened in that month. So pretty significant.
And when are you launching in Australia?
In January, mid-January.
Fantastic. Oh, all the best with that.
Thank you.
So today we're going to have a chat about a couple of beautiful topics. We have the soul tease, the power of storytelling, and womanhood. And throughout each of these topics, you are going to open each topic with a poem that you've written, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a short bit of prose poetry, because, that's my main thing. I am a wordsmith. So I'll start with soul tease, if I may.
Absolutely.
So the skip of my heartbeat, the niggling sound in the back of my mind, the pit in my stomach. It all makes perfect sense now. That was my soul teasing me all of these years.
I love listening to you. Like, my body goes into so much. It's like, oh.
Yeah. I hope that's a good sensation.
It's a great sensation. You are so incredible with your words. And when we were doing our last interview, you blew me away with just how clever you are with your words and how passionate you are and how they all link together to tell a story.
Absolutely. And sometimes I think poems, the modern urban poetry has to just be about bleeding ink and speaking from the heart. We mustn't get fixated on kind of rhyming and we're not in the Shakespearean days anymore, although there are a few people that can write like that. So I think for me, it's just about getting it out, and a lot of my poems and poetry resonate. So I'm glad you enjoyed that soul tease poem.
Yeah. So please share with us, what is your take on the soul tease?
Alicia, if we look at nearly every religion in the world, each of them has a narrative or speaks about the soul in some way or another. And the soul is almost like this faculty that we don't often speak about. We know what the mind is, because that's thinking. And we know what the heart is, because that's feeling and emotion. But there's this other thing that we kind of know exists, but a lot of people are often maybe scared to kind of embrace that as a faculty for decision making. So for me, the soul tease is this third entity that we can never kind of pinpoint, but it's a thing that we say, I had a gut feeling. Some people call it sixth sense or intuition. And what started to fascinate me was that some people know how to follow that, and some people are often a little bit more fearful about following that. So in my life, I know up until I kind of made this a main focus of my life, I knew something was wrong, but yet I went ahead and followed that path, whether that be, anything from a choice of partner through to choice of job. And yet deep down, it's a mirror truth. If you were just there in a room with just your soul, what would that soul say to you? So the soul tease is all about the teasing that happens where you kind of feel a little bit sick maybe, or you're up all night thinking about something. So, the soul tease is about knowing that you're being teased by something, that inner voice, but not necessarily doing anything about it.
And it's so important for when you, I think it's so important to listen to that. And it's such an interesting one, isn't it? Because our whole lives, we have that. It's like a tapping on the shoulder. And until we start listening to it, things are going to go ways that we don't want them to go. But when we start listening and we start tuning in, I like to, I call it my intuition. And I love the soul tease. That is so beautiful. When we start listening, how much does our life change so that things are flowing better for us, from relationship to business to work to whatever it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're almost just opening the doors to say, I'm now standing in this space. I mean, myself, for me, this is healing as well, because the Soulful Group and the way my business will take its direction. Because since a very young age, actually, Alicia, I knew that my life path wasn't meant to be necessarily usual. Yes, I came from a certain background. I'm an Asian female living in the UK, and that brought with it certain expectations. And confusion from within. But I knew from a very young age that my life wasn't meant to be one that focused inwards. That somehow the work I did had to be outward facing. And all the material things of success, such as, good income, nice house, all the material things, they're a byproduct. And I kind of knew that at a young age, but I couldn't really express that. That they weren't the main pursuit for me, they were secondary.
Yeah, I think I think there becomes a point in life, well, in my experience, it's never been a focus on those things. And I feel like it's a shift for people when I think big things happen in people's lives, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm not defined by that anymore, or I don't need to be defined by the dollar in my bank account, or the home that I have that's 3.8 million on the beach, or the car that I drive. When we can peel back those layers and not look at our stuff as as the meaning of our worth, then it all kind of just falls away a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you need those pivot points, actually. So you need some, I'm just going to use the word tragedy, but everybody has mini tragedies. Some people have very large tragedies. I've had my fair share of both. And when they appear in your life, that is your soul giving you not a tease, but a signal.
Yes, those signals, look out.
and some we still keep going, and then get smacked in the face again.
Totally. And I think when you become awake, call it awake or aware or conscious, you begin to notice those, don't you? And it's like, for me, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I see that. There's no way I'm going to mess around with that. this is not in alignment for me anymore. No worries, universe, it's gone. Because I know universe has a really magical way of shaking us up if we don't listen.
Absolutely. So well, it's famous, well, the well-known saying,
Oh,
the
hold on.
purpose of life is to live a life.
Oh, sorry, Shobana. Hang on. We'll just say that again. Yep, just cut out. Go for it.
So, you know, Alicia, there's this saying, the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's such a simple thing, right? But when you put that at the forefront of everything you do when you wake up and when you go to sleep, then actually the rest is like that. If that doesn't serve the purpose, I have to eliminate this.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do through helping people as well, is to help them just adjust and find their purpose. Because it can be an overwhelming thing to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because change the way you live your life.
Definitely. 100%. It's a little bit of I said this before in a conversation with someone, I don't recall who it was with, but sometimes I feel like it's a bit of a funny joke, like our lives. We can get so serious with things and you know, define ourselves a certain way and have all these stories going on and get so uptight with everything and tense with everything. And I just look now and I'm like, a friend of mine said this to me one day. She says, "Oh, cheeky universe." And it's like, it's kind of a funny little game that's played. And I think when we let go of the resistance and acknowledge that and start tuning into that, then we let go of so much. We have the capacity to let go of so much hurt and grief and pain. And everybody's journey is their own, right? And everybody's journey takes the amount of time it needs to take for them. It's quite interesting. The more these layers are peeled back in my own world, the more I see just how when we let go of resistance and we let go of expectation and control and we actually trust and listen to the soul tease, just, I said earlier, just how different our life can be.
And that's what happened a few years ago where, of course, it's incremental, like you say, it step by step, everyone has to work at a different pace. But the minute that I realized I don't need to fit in to those necessarily around me, whether that be in my community or my religion or whatever the defining thing is, it didn't matter at all. Whatever, if somebody's been a black sheep of the family, that was always slightly something that I carried with me, slightly being different, wanting different things. I now embrace that. And those things have such a connotation with them, don't you think? You know, the black sheep of the family. Actually, you know, it's nice to be weird. It's nice to be different. And I hope that I can, through my work, show people that actually I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. So although that may be different and unconventional, it's completely fine because it suits me and the universe and my existence, my short time here, perfectly.
Yeah, when we can let go of that expectation or the way something has to look, and we can go into that space, then it becomes less weird, doesn't it? It becomes less strange. It just becomes the norm.
Yeah, and hopefully we can inspire other people that are wanting to make any level of change in their life.
Yeah, agreed. Nice. All right, let's flip into the power of storytelling, your specialty.
You know what, Alicia, there's always a lot of positivity around storytelling, but today I just want to frame that storytelling, first of all, has two sides. There's a positive and a negative. And I'll start with a short poem. Cut me and you won't find blood, for through my veins runs ink. I choose not a sword, but a pen to leave a chink in this world.
Oh, so delicious, so beautiful.
Thank you. And that for me is about my journey, about I bleed ink. I mean, you see some of my stuff and I have to let that out. So on a selfish personal reason, it's therapy. How some people exercise, that's what writing is for me. But where that love of stories comes from is that stories are, well, they move us, don't they? They make us feel alive. And, you know, we grow up as children, right? What's the thing we want? We want our parents. In any culture, anywhere in the world, we want some kind of story time from our parents. And I think that's because we have an appetite from a very young age to want to know kind of patterns of life, not from an analytical perspective, not data, but really, how did something happen? So how did grandma do that? How did you and mom deal with that, or so on and so forth? And stories, as we know, are such a great way to connect with people and reach out to them emotionally.
Yeah.
And that's what I discovered in my own life, actually, that was one of the key tools.
So what does your world as a storyteller look like?
You know, I've recently discovered spoken word as a form through which to express storytelling. So locally, my work is put into two parts: international work on the publishing digital side, and then my local work, Alicia, where I really get out there into the community and hold open mic events, storytelling events, and creative writing workshops. And what that would enable is for people to come in a completely judgmental space and to tell either a real or fictional story. And 2 or 3, I mean, tomorrow I'm going to play a game with a local club, true or false. And somebody once said to me, and they're completely correct, actually no stories are false. They're either true or they're invented.
Mm.
And there's real beauty in the invention too. So that's what storytelling would look like. It's, of course, a lot of written work, but there's that verbal storytelling, you know, where you listen to stories. And I try to harness that to give people confidence. And so we do open mic as well. And poetry is a form of storytelling. So just allowing people to express that out by taking a mic.
Do a lot of people come along and listen?
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is that so many people at the start, when I said, oh, would you like to take the mic today? Said, oh, no. And then maybe half an hour goes through and they realize that the environment is completely non-judgmental. We're not there as a competitive open mic. Of course, you get poetry slams. And then they say, can I just, and then they take the mic, Alicia, and they just kind of say whatever they need to say. For an event that it's called Soulful Wordsmiths, and we've already started with 3 of those events, and we have 12 more planned for next year. And we've actually created themes so that people can kind of focus in their emotions and say something. So next month is winter and gifts. This month we just had light and dark, you know, because it was Diwali, and then Christmas is coming up, and so on and so forth. So we go ahead and just give people that space to tell stories.
I love how your brain works.
Yeah. Thank you.
I do. It's such a beautiful brain, how you come up with everything that you come up with. It just fascinates me a lot.
Well, that's a soul tease making me a line, Alicia, actually saying, you know, come on now, get soulful.
Yeah.
And you do too many activities, and let's kind of streamline it so, you know, that we can all add the value that we need to.
Nice. Is there anything else that you would like to share about the power of storytelling?
I would the negative side. If you remember, I said that there was a negative. And you know, this is that we grow up with labels. We spoke about this in the last time that we interviewed.
Yeah.
Whether that a label is that you're a woman and women behave like this in society, or men behave in this is a story. And what we don't realize, Alicia, is the stories that have been passed on from generation to generation to generation.
Can you just say that again, please, Shobana? The stories have been passed on, just that part, yeah?
By generation to generation?
Say the stories, yeah.
Yes, the stories. And so we begin to believe them.
Sorry, can you say the sentence? The stories have been passed on generation, and lead in again. Thank you, we just cut out.
So, you know, Alicia, the stories that we often find ourselves listening to have been passed on from generation to generation.
Yeah, still cut out. One more time. Sorry.
Oh. So, you know, Alicia, the stories that we hear have been passed on from generation to generation. They could be anything, but let's just take an example. You need a good education to be successful in life. That's a story.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been led to believe that. And there are merits in that, but there are also a negative side, which is that we start to be conditioned by these stories, and they create layers. You know, we talked about the onion layer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where storytelling is very powerful, but in a negative way. Because many people, start to believe that narrative and that story.
It's one of my favorite topics to dive into with my clients. Just the amount of stories that we tell ourselves. I find it humorous now, and I call myself out on my stories when I have them. But just to see how easy it is for us to just live in that story all the time. It's like one of my favorite questions is, do I actually believe this?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Is it true or is it invented?
Yeah, touche.
And if it's invented, we should be using our faculties, those faculties, the heart, the mind, and the soul, to work out whether that's valid in today's current life.
And I think, again, it comes down to when we begin to wake up, when we begin to stop being on autopilot and just living a certain way, when we start to question, when we start to listen to the soul, as you talk about, then we can start to see, and only then, I believe, can we start to see the stories that we live in. And those stories, a lot of those stories, I think, too, can be parts of limiting beliefs. Yeah, I love your take on that, and then how I work with that as well. It's very interesting.
And that's right, because you're in your sessions, I suppose, your work, it's about decoding it. And I think for me, that's such a beautiful thing, like storytelling can have such a negative impact when we start to believe stuff that has just been passed down and down and down and becomes a reality.
Yeah.
So,
Well, would you like to lead us into the next poem for womanhood?
Absolutely. I am tied to a role all of my life, mother, daughter, wife. I have no problem with this, for God made me the bearer of this responsibility. I enjoy undertaking all of my roles, but from time to time I reflect on what it would be like to be me.
So beautiful.
Alicia, this is about being all of those things, and that's fine. We're born in a skin, in a body, labels. But before all of that, we are a human being. Womanhood is also a concept and a label on top of that. That's, I suppose, my main argument with this line of thinking is that. I don't know what you think about that.
I think I'm with you on that. I feel like we get so caught up in being everything for everybody else, which is perfect. I love being a mum. I love being a partner. I love being a businesswoman. Yet at the end of the day, for me, the most important thing is that I am number one for me. And I feel like then that takes out my labels of who I am or what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just love the mirror of how we work in these spaces together. You with the topics that we're talking about, and me in my business. It's like when we take away those labels, I guess it opens such a big can of worms, doesn't it? Well, can of worms maybe not the right word, but it opens such a big topic for what does it mean to be a woman? Well, first and foremost, what does it mean to be you? Who am I?
You know what, Alicia, we're hosting an event. Part one of the strands is International Women's Day, which is the same day for you guys, in March of next year. And I was so driven by the need to make sure that I have an event that has men there. And I take nothing away from all these other fabulous events that take place, award ceremonies or data-driven events where they're talking about gender equality and pay disparity. All of that's fine. But I wanted to kind of be in a different space. And for this event, I wanted to look at, the title is Deconstructing Womanhood. Analysis is fine, but deconstruction makes a complete mess of the thing from the inside out. And if we're going to make a mess of something, we need men there. They were there in our creation. So a lot of people often get shocked and surprised that there's no, is that a space for men? Oh, I think it is, because I think they also want to hear what we feel about womanhood.
Yeah, I love that. Are you going to have an event here in Australia as well for that?
No, I think that I'll be stretched to do that. But unless I'm invited maybe the following year in 2019, then who knows, we could do something.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds amazing. Is it March the 8th?
It is, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Starting to plan for that now, you know. And yeah, I mean, it's just taking that philosophical, spiritual storytelling lens
Mhm.
onto womanhood, I think.
Yeah, beautiful. So what other aspects do you look at in the area of womanhood?
I think going deep down into history of different cultures.
Mhm.
So, for example, one of the keynote speeches will be from somebody who's going to look at womanhood through the lens of goddesses. So whoever she takes, you know, whether that be Hindu goddesses such as Shakti or Kali Ma or whatever, and also some goddesses in ancient Greece and Greek mythology, and it goes on and on and on. And looking at what they said, what did mythology say about womanhood? Because that's centuries ago. And actually, the narrative in all of those were that women hold such lifeblood and power and energy in themselves.
Absolutely.
So I think it's mainly about the kaleidoscope and the lenses. So taking the concept of womanhood, of course, doing the very first most important thing, asking women themselves, what word comes to mind when you think about womanhood? And then not using these lenses to try and deconstruct the concept.
I would love an invitation to your event for March.
It's a long flight,
That's
but
okay. You just put me on the list.
and I'll love to share some stuff with you. And you know, this is one of the key things as well. I think having in a business and being brave enough to say we're going to have a base in Australia, we're going to have a base in India, means that we can serve a bigger client base, but we can also understand some of these concepts from different perspectives.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
We have to be international in the way that we look at a lot of these things.
And different cultures, yeah. So from that international perspective, what you're talking about, we all have different cultures in our country. So I like that you're doing that.
Yeah. And that's it. So I think our hands are tied full from now until March with all of this stuff. And in the meantime, I carry on with my writing, and I'm publishing my poetry book that day as well, aptly entitled Womanhood, a collection of mirror truths.
So delicious. And that will be, is that your fourth book?
It will be my second published book, but yeah, I think you know that I'm working on quite a few things in the background. So
it's been so great to chat with you from like months ago when we first connected about doing the podcast, and then when we had the first chat, and now today, just to see how your passion has turned into something so much bigger than yourself. It's so beautiful. I love when this happens for women. You know, walk the path, go with your gut instinct, go with what lights you up. And you've just gone from someone who, when I saw you, wasn't quite sure of what they were doing, to now like, boom, I have a publishing house. Boom, I'm about to publish my second book. This is where I stand. And that, I love how that ripple effect just spreads out. It's so beautiful, Shobana.
And it doesn't take long, right, Alicia? It takes 10 days, 5 days, 30 days, 1 hour. I say this, the epiphany, it's not an epiphany. These things are always in us. It's, do I choose to be brave and take that step and listen to the signals, or do I backtrack? So I was toying with all of that at the time that we spoke. And actually, I want to just say it's women like you that inspire women like me to stand in the truth, not just once, not just twice, but every single day. It's difficult, but watching you makes me know that there's a space where it will be accepted if we're as truthful as we can be. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, that means so much to me. I had a conversation with someone close to me in my life a little while back, and they said to me, you can't always be this truthful. And I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. What? Like, I am this truthful, and I will stand in my truth, whether it pisses you off, whether it aggravates you, because I know 100% that my heart space is pure. So whatever my truth is, it comes from a place of integrity. It comes from a place of beauty. It comes from a place of curiosity. There's no I feel blessed that one of my gifts is to be a total bearer of truth. So thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. So, that's the thing, right? You just have to just do, and you just do. And so you gain your audience and you help people. And that's what all any of us can do, men or women, just do the thing and not worry too much about the rest.
Yeah. Thanks for that beautiful reminder as well.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you would love to share with our listeners?
No, I mean, I just listen to the SOULFULs is all I'll say. And one way in which a tool, a technique is write daily. The soul's telling you something, write it down on a Post-it. Write it in a book, in a journal, whatever that is, because the two connect. You have to kind of manifest the thing by getting it out on paper sometimes. So just listen to the signals and do your best to give yourself the quiet time to understand what on earth is going on in that soul.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. And where can our listeners find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Shobana Patel. We have a Facebook page, Soulful Group. They can DM me there. And our website is soulfulgroup.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us in this space, Shobana.
Thank you very much. Namaste, Alicia.
Yeah, namaste. Thank you so much to each and every single one of you also who have tuned in for today's episode. You will be able to join us again next week. Until then, bye.